Now, while Christmas break may be approaching, there's still plenty of SCSU sports to go around. I'm Austin Schindler, and before we hang our stockings and pour a thick glass of eggnog, we'll unwrap some Husky sports when we come back. I'm Austin Schindler. When we come back, find out which Husky was named to the U.S. Junior National Team, and a couple swimmers were also honored by the NSIC. Don't go anywhere. Sports is coming up on UTVS.
So Austin, lot to look forward to with the Olympics. Anything you're especially looking forward to?
You know, it's too bad that the Jamaican bobsled team did not make it this year. So after a 13-year playoff drought in Minnesota basketball, it's finally over. The Timberwolves are in, and they took on the NBA's best team, Houston Rockets, in a Southern lowdown throwdown showdown. Minnesota said they weren't happy making it just in the playoffs, so we'll kick it off with Jimmy Buckets. A little Timberwolves connection here with Derrick Rose puts him up and one. Next up, Davis, fake, Davis, hammer time. St. Cloud State would take the game and win their 15th of their last 19 games. As Huskies star forward, Ryan Poehling has been named to the U.S. National Juniors team's preliminary roster. Now the Montreal Canadiens prospect has tallied 4 goals and 11 assists this season and is part of the bread and butter that keeps the number 2 team in the nation rolling. Poehling was one of 28 players invited and will be battling for a spot on the full 23-man roster. The U.S. national team, also coached by St. Cloud's very own Bob Motzko, will be looking for back-to-back gold medal performances this winter, which would be the first time since 2010 and 11. Finishing 3rd overall in the tournament behind a masterful effort from junior Troy Reinanen, who finished tied at the top of the leaderboard and faced off in a playoff against Concordia St. Paul's Noah Rosinski for the title. Reinanen ended up dropping the hole to Rosinski, but still boasted a beautiful second place, finishing with 219 in the conference tournament. And with 3 stars returning, a couple transfers, and old guys stepping into new roles, the Cardinal and Black have a lot to be excited for. And that would be the game winner as St. Cloud State takes home their 3rd conference championship and their 2nd Penrose Cup in 4 years. Ryan Poehling, what can you tell us about that? And we'll kick things off with Robbie Jackson on the break to Judd Peterson putting a bit on it, but Robbie Jackson putting it back in, saying it's time here. The Cardinal and Black have split the last 6 meetings versus the Golden Eagles, and it's quite an even matchup as Crookston has only outscored St. Cloud 430 to 408 in those last 6 meetings. The Crusaders leaned on their knights in shining armor, Michael Schaefer and Mitchell Plombon, who combined for Cathedral's 55 of 75 points. Cathedral would then take the game. Even though they were looking for that state title, their 3rd place finish is still the best in school history. Starting pitcher Matt Osterberg had himself a field day on the bump, going 6 innings, allowing only 2 hits, not giving up a single run, all while fanning 7 batters. But the Huskies' bats were just as good as Osterberg's arm, racking up 11 runs, including a grand slam at the hands of Matthew Meyer to put the cherry on top for the Huskies. They took this one 11-1. And we'll go from the frozen pond here to the frozen diamond. St. Cloud State managed to play a couple games this past Sunday against Concordia St. Paul in Minnetonka. Ohio State currently holds the top spot by a thread, leading Minnesota by only 1 point. St. Cloud State shares the basement with Minnesota State with a 1-9 record. Now, there's plenty of problems you could point to, whether it be goaltending, defense, or scoring. But even with a 1-9 record, the Huskies still have put up 7 goals in the last 2 games. So we'll see if the Lady Huskies can get on the right track when they are put to the ultimate test this weekend when they take the road trip to Columbus to crack the Buckeyes. But the Golden Bears weren't roaring in this contest as the Huskies tossed them like a salad behind stellar performances by Adam Heat Anderson and an NSIC North Player of the Week, Sean Smith. He'd put up a career-high 21 points and showed some dead-eye range, going 5 for 6 beyond the arc. Smith was just as effective, stuffing the stat sheet, totaling 15 points, grabbing 8 boards, dropped a team-high 4 assists, and blocked 5 shots. But we'll stick to the Lynx here as the St. Cloud State women's golf team also took on that brisk Bemidji breeze for their first effort of the season. Skis were led by stud senior Riley Duncanson, who finished tied for 2nd in the tournament, shooting a 144, even with par. Duncanson did put a bit on the top golfer, only finishing a mere 2 strokes behind what would be champion Greg Matthew of Bemidji State. Now, last year, St. Cloud State started with a 10-2 record before collapsing to a disappointing 16 wins and 14 losses to end last year's campaign. This year, the Huskies are in familiar territory with a 7-2 start, but the Cardinal and Black are determined to not let that same fate fall upon them. St. Cloud State women's soccer dominated this past weekend, including a dynamic performance by senior defenseman and midfielder Maria Whitty, earning herself NSIC Player of the Week. St. Cloud State volleyball wasn't what you would call a top-of-the-line program, finishing with only one winning season in the past 6. But the team sees a bit of a culture change, and the players are on board. Now, if you're wondering why Emma Paluzny was named to the U.S. national team, let me just run through a few things with you. Last year, she posted a .934 save percentage, which was good for 4th best in the WCHA and 10th best in the nation. Next, she put up a 41 save performance in a 0-0 draw versus Ohio State, which set the record for most saves in a shutout in St. Cloud State history. And let's not forget she was named to the All-Rookie team in the WCHA last year and the 3rd team All-WCHA, not to mention all as a freshman. The 30-year-old has been through a whirlwind of highs and lows. And on a night when Minnesota was wearing their throwback jerseys, Derrick Rose decided to turn back the clock as well. And by the time that final buzzer sounded, the only thing Derrick Rose could not handle was his emotions.
In the entire league.
Other traditions include crowning a homecoming king and queen, parades down St. Germain Street, and even in 1952, Dwight Eisenhower stopped in and crowned the homecoming queen. So the question remains, what happened to homecoming?
Southern Nazarene will see St. Cloud State.
Last spring, St. Cloud State was named back to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 6 years.
We can compete with the best teams in the nation. I mean, they go on and they're one possession away from winning a national championship. And I think, one, it shows us that we are at that level and that we can play with those teams.
The Huskies made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament before they took an agonizing loss to conference rival Northern State. And the Huskies certainly have not forgot.
As coaches use that as motivation because I think we all think that that's a game that that could have gone the other way.
There's plays I look back on and I'm like, man, if we would have just did this one thing, just a little different, we would be in a different spot.
But with newfound tournament experience comes large expectations. And this team is not afraid of the noise.
This year we can't be satisfied with just getting there. We have to actually do something. One of our goals is to win the regional and get to the Elite Eight.
We'll be at the top hopefully, right? You want to go into each season with that goal to, be number one.
We're now joined by Austin Schindler in studio. Austin, what was the atmosphere like at the first homecoming game in 8 years?
Yeah, guys, for the first homecoming in 8 years, everyone showed out today. The fans showed up. It was family weekend, and even we got a wedding proposal. But for St. Cloud State as the football team, it all started off early in the first quarter when Dwayne Lawhorn tossed a 42-yard pass to Tanner Teague, which would set it up for the early score to John Solberg, a 9-yard pass, which would be one of 3 of the Solberg receiving touchdowns, and that really set the pace for the Huskies in this one.
Now, looking at Dwayne Lawhorn, his second week back, returning from injury, seemed to have stepped up for the Huskies in this game. Austin, what did you see out of him?
Yeah, guys, it really didn't seem like Dwayne Lawhorn had any problem in this one. He had a couple shaky throws to begin the game, one being an interception, but from there he finished the game 15 for 28, 269 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns, which would end up huge for the Huskies. And seeing him on the field, just for the eye test, he was putting it in almost every pocket for the receiver, giving him some really good balls to catch, and that was really big for the Huskies in this one.
Austin, Upper Iowa is known for being a top team in passing yards in the NSIC conference. How do you think SCSU did in controlling Upper Iowa?
Yep, and it all started off with clutch defense on St. Cloud State's part. Upper Iowa was able to drive it down the field a couple times early in the first half. They got it down to the 1-yard line 2 different times, but on 4th down, they went for it, and the Huskies came up huge. They stopped them from scoring, and that prevented any momentum for Upper Iowa early in that first half, and it really set the tone for the second half in the Huskies, guys.
Now, after this big win for St. Cloud State, where does that lead them into the standings?
Yep, after this latest win here, it'll put us at number 2 in the NSIC North. We were previously tied with Bemidji State and MSU Moorhead, but both Bemidji and MSU Moorhead took losses this week to the respected teams they played, which puts St. Cloud State in sole possession of second place, only behind Minnesota Duluth. But these next 3 games are going to be huge for the Huskies, guys, as 2 out of the 3 are versus Bemidji State and MSU Moorhead. Bemidji State being next week at Husky Stadium and MSU Moorhead to cap off the season.
Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys.